Hello my fellow WildRift enjoyers and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. And for today it's time for another OP builds episode, but before we hop into it, let's talk about our question of the day. What champion do you want to see next? Any ideas? Anything? Just leave it down in the comments below. And now let's start with the champions. First, we have Tristana. Tristana is one of those champions that has gotten more priority because this champion does wonders as we reach the later stages of the game. But that's not necessarily all there is to it. Tristana is also quite decently in laning once she hits level 3 and level 5. On level 3 she has access to all her abilities and can hop in for a Mario Hopper kill, and on level 5 she has insane burst damage that if the enemy team doesn't have exhaust will most of the time lead to a kill. And there's something you need to know that most of the Tristana players don't know. All of Tristana's spells apply a stack to the bomb once the bomb is attached to an enemy. Which means if you jump onto an enemy set with the bomb attached to it, you'll add another stack to the bomb. The same also applies for your ultimate ability, so if you jump onto an enemy set and plan to just knock him away with your bomb, you can do so by fully stacking it with your ultimate as well. And now let's move over to the build. For the items we have a very AD heavy build that is quite different from usual builds. We start with an Infinity Edge, go into a Navori Quick Blades, then into a Bloodthirst, into a Modern Reminder and then into Runan's Hurricane. The reason for this is we want the most AD possible and want to abuse Navori Quick Blade's hyper overbuffed state. The idea behind this build is that we don't need to heavily invest into attack speed because we have infinite attack speed from our first ability, which has no cooldown anymore because of the Navori Quick Blades. Now if you add Lethal Tempo to the mix, we'll have more than enough attack speed and just want to stake more AD. With more AD, our spells will deal more damage and we'll demolish enemy champions. Also, our second ability and third ability will reset more often thanks to this lovely Navori Quick Blades. And if you get a kill, don't forget your second ability resets whatsoever. For runes, you want to run Lethal Tempo, Vampirism, Adaptive Carapace and Demolish. Demolish is something you can go for because your champion just takes down towers immediately. Once you get a free second on a tower with Demolish or even without Demolish, you'll take them down almost instantaneously. If you feel a little bit different or want to go for something else, you can go for Nimbus Cloak, which is always a good choice on AD carries. The next champion we want to talk about is Senna. Senna has been rumored one of the weaker champions in the game because, well, people just can't play her, but that's literally it. Senna as a champion is a lane dominant champion that heavily scales into the later stages of the game, heals and shields and is overall a nuisance to deal with. But what exactly makes Senna so good that you just want to pick her, and what items do you need to make her overpowered? For one, the healing and poke capabilities during laning phase are kinda insane. She also has quite a decent setup with her root ability, and when it comes to teamfights, her shielding and healing are actually broken. But what else? As we go into the later stages of the game, her range becomes absurdly high and it's just impossible to deal with once she reaches that point unless you can reliably all-in the Senna. But if that isn't an option, she will simply demolish you with the power of Runan's Hurricane. And now let's talk about the items. You'll start with the Sickle support item, because you can proc it from range with your first ability, and even when there's only a tower in range, you can proc it on the tower by using your allies as a proxy target to then hit the tower. That way, you'll get gold immediately. If you feel a little bit more antsy during the laning phase, you can always default to the Relic Shield nonetheless. For your first item, you want Mana Mune for the infinite mana because you'll need it, trust me. Then you want Cyrilda's Grudge, Navori Quick Blades and Runan's. The idea behind this build is having infinite first abilities that will sustain your allies and deal even more damage. Runan's Hurricane will reduce the cooldown of your first ability by 3 seconds every time you hit an enemy and allies that are around it. If you add Navori Quick Blades to the mix, which will grant you a lot of crit chance, while you already have a lot of crit chance, your cooldown will be reduced even further. With that reduced cooldown, you'll have an easy time spamming this ability, which then requires you to have Mana Mune, because otherwise you'll just run out of mana. For the rune, you want Kraken Slayer, Champion Rune, Adaptive Carapace and Hunter Genius. Kraken Slayer is just the best rune for your champion because Grasp is literally useless. Anyone else just saying something else is just lying because they didn't actually look into it. It doesn't deal any damage, it barely heals anything, and it doesn't do too much, and it's so easy to reliably proc Kraken into anything. All you have to do is auto attack, use your first ability, which is an auto attack reset, into another auto attack. Boom, procced. And the damage is like 4 times the damage of Grasp on level 1. Yeah, that's quite funny. Just try and proc some Grasp procs and lose lane because you're just trolling. Thank you. For our next champion we have Morgana. Morgana as a champion takes some time to scale up to then become a powerful force on the Rift. With the recent nerfs to Liandry's Torment, it becomes kind of hard to build it early on because the damage has been lowered quite a bit. It's now significantly weaker than before. However, there's ways of making it powerful if you actually want to be powerful and the type of a carry Morgana. There's a big difference between a supportive Morgana, which goes for Rylai's and Mandate, and a full damage Morgana, which in this instance goes Luden's Ekko, Riftmaker, Liandry's Torment, Rabadon, and then Void Stuff. For runes, unironically you will go Phase Rush, Triumph, Adaptive Carapace and Hunter Genius. The idea behind this build is to grant you more sustain and more damage over time. In the past Morgana heavily spiked on 3 items, but with the changes the damage spike got lowered quite a bit, but with this you'll have even more damage. Riftmaker, unless you're not in combat, increases your damage up to 9% in the form of true damage. With the Riftmaker now in your inventory, the Liandry makes it easier for you to stay in combat to make full use of the 9% bonus damage in the form of true damage. That's literally it. For our next champion we have Ezreal, and here's just a finesse thing you have to consider. Ezreal loves to poke out the enemy and rarely just goes in unless he goes in for the kill. So what about these items? Manamune, Sheen, Blade of the Rune King, Cyrilda's Grudge, Riftmaker, and then you complete Triforce. The Sheen standalone item plays super well into the cards of how Ezreal wants to be played. Just use your first ability to poke out the enemy. And then with the Blade of the Rune King you'll have extra sustain and more damage overall to help yourself out quite a lot. And for your last item, the Riftmaker, since Ezreal has hybrid scalings, it will make your life even easier by buffing your damage and also giving you more sustain and also granting yourself some lovely true damage, which will help you against tanks even in the later stages of the game. And also against normal champions, it's just quite some nice damage. For runes, you want Conqueror, Hunter Vampirism, Adaptive Carapace and Hunter Genius as per usual. The last champion on this list is receiving a few nerfs, but you can still play him, and this is a bit of a special build. This build focuses on actually clearing the jungle and being efficient while having insane stats built into it. I'm talking about Ekko here, by the way. Your first item is going to be Nash's Tooth, then a Rabadon Staff Cap, an Infinity Orb, a Lich Bane, and then a Void Stuff. Ekko as a champion takes some time to reliably scale up and become a nuisance on the Rift. Once he's fed or has reached 3 items, he becomes a monster that one-shots everyone around the Rift. What about itemizing into heavy ability haste, attack speed and AP to help yourself clearing your jungle faster, clearing waves faster, and overall having spells more often to then scale faster, be inside of more skirmishes, and having your ultimate more often so you can go for more active plays. With Nash's Tooth you'll have all of that combined into one, and that way you'll have an easier way transitioning through the game without having to just expose yourself to too much risk. For the runes you want Fleet Footwork, Champion, Adaptive Carapace and a Genius. Since you have so much ability haste in this build, the Nash's Tooth and your ultimate will just help you to keep those champion stacks and therefore accelerate your damage even higher into the late game. Another thing you have to consider here is that most of the Ekko's trading patterns as the game goes on are just 3 quick hits to just proc the passive. With Nash's Tooth this gets infinitely easier because the attack speed literally helps you out to just piece out of any bad situation. Cause don't forget, Ekko is a super squishy champion, and if you're caught once, just literally once and just half a second too long in the same position, then you're just immediately gone and all the things you wanted to do are just for naught. And that's it for today's video. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe and come back for more content, because we'll always deliver you the best and highest quality you can ask for and look for. See you soon for more stuff.